They say don't cry over spilled milk. Well, a little while ago, I did a video about a woman who was crying over spoiled milk. You see, a woman came onto TikTok and did an experiment to see how long it would take her boyfriend to throw out a container of spoiled milk. Apparently, this had been a habit of his that he would leave the milk after it had expired and not throw it out, even though she would ask him to, and he would just leave it for her to do. And eventually, she got tired of always having to be the one to throw out the spoiled milk. So she came onto TikTok and did this experiment. And it took him over 4 months to actually throw out the milk, and apparently he threw it out after a man told him he probably should. I don't know who that was, friend, family member, who knows? She didn't give us that particular information. The point is, I made a video about it and the comments were actually really interesting. So I thought I would do a little bit of a deeper dive exploring this idea of, was this such a big deal? And what the comments tell us about how we view relationships and gender roles and the division of labor. But first, if you're new here, my name is Tanya and I'm a family lawyer and mediator. And on this channel, I talk about all things relationships, from dating to divorce. If that sounds like something you're interested in, I would love it if you could subscribe, ring the bell. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and let me know what you think in the comments. Also, my professional details will be linked below. So just for context, this woman is named Liz.
If you ever wonder what it's like to live with a man, let me give you guys a little bit of insight. So I've been playing this game with my boyfriend. I don't think he knows that we're playing the game, but there's been expired milk in the fridge, a whole gallon, for 7.
And somewhere around September last year, she began this experiment and she began recording this video that would eventually be uploaded in January. But stay with me. So she says in the video that there's this carton of expired milk. It's already very clearly expired, and she wants to see how long it will take her boyfriend to actually throw it out. And she does these updates where she gives us, the date, like now it's this date in October and then November and then December. Eventually it comes to the new year. That carton of milk is still there. And you can see in the videos that new milk has been purchased, that he has moved the carton of milk to the back of the fridge, but he has not thrown it out. And then the last clip of the video is him throwing it out, and the caption on the screen reads that he finally threw it out in January after a man told him that he probably should. So I then made a video myself discussing this. And in the video, I posited that she is actually treating this relationship the way the boyfriend is treating the expired carton of milk. You see, she clearly has identified a problem, and I'm going to go as far as to say that it's probably not just about milk, but I'll get back to that. She's identified a problem, but instead of actually dealing with it head on and recognizing that maybe this is a compatibility issue, maybe this relationship isn't for her, maybe she's terribly unhappy, she's ignoring the real issue the way the boyfriend is ignoring the carton of milk. It's kind of smelly, it's kind of gross, it's uncomfortable to deal with, so it's easier to push it to the back of the fridge and kind of ignore it and pretend like it isn't there. Hopefully it will just sort itself out. Now that was the TikTok I made, and you can go watch it if you haven't seen it already. It's this one over here. But what I wanted to talk about today were the comments, because I found it really interesting, people's takeaway on what I was saying. And I'm going to break it down into a few broad categories. The first category was what I'm going to call the communication warriors. These were people who right away were like, why didn't she just communicate? Why can't people just communicate? You have to tell them if you want them to do something, or you have to explain. Now, you will not often hear me talk about communication as a solution to these sort of problems. And the reason is because I do not believe that this is a failure of communication. I'm not saying that communication isn't important. I'm just saying that it isn't really the problem when we see these sort of situations. For context, this woman has told the boyfriend that he needs to throw out the milk when it is expired. She has asked him, she has explained it. I promise you that she did not go to the trouble of making this video as her first port of call. I can guarantee that this is an ongoing issue that she has tried to communicate before. But people really just want to believe that if she just says it one more time, or maybe she says it in a different tone, or I don't know, maybe if she creates an interpretive dance to go with what she is saying, a PowerPoint presentation, smoke signals, like I don't know, but people seem to want to believe that if you just communicate in the correct way, that will solve the problem. But the problem is not that he doesn't understand that the milk needs to be thrown out, that he doesn't know that she wants him to throw it out. The problem is that he doesn't care and he doesn't want to throw it out, and he is more than happy to just leave it until she does it herself. So please explain to me how one is meant to communicate their way out of that situation. You can't. And the other problem that I have with this idea of, oh, you just have to communicate, is that it often places the onus on what I would perceive to be the aggrieved party. In this case, it's this woman, rather than looking at the behavior of the other person. Why is it, for example, that this woman needs to tell a grown man that when milk is expired, you throw it in the bin? Does she also need to explain to him how socks work? Should she need to teach him how to tie his shoelaces? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, at what point is it so obvious that having to explain it becomes a little bit concerning? And this sort of criticism is very often aimed at when they complain about something that their boyfriend or their husband or their partner is doing. It is very often people's first assumption to ask, like, did you communicate? Did you tell him? Did you explain to him? Maybe you could write him a list. And I don't like that rhetoric because it is another way that we put the invisible labor of relationships onto women, because all of that is work. All of that is part of the mental load of a relationship. And it isn't fair to place all of that onto one party, to say it's really up to them to recognize when everything is expired, and then they need to be the ones to either throw it out or to inform the other party that it needs to be thrown out. And you could apply that to anything. It isn't fair for one person to have to carry all of the knowing, noticing, remembering, and doing, and to also have to then communicate to the other person that these things need to be done. Because the fact that you even need to tell them already indicates that they've dropped the ball, because why can't they know that it needs to be done? These are not things that are super not obvious. They're obvious things. And so that is why I do not like that rhetoric, and that is why I do not think that communication is the solution in this situation. The second category of comments were what I call trying to excuse the behavior. So trying to find all kinds of reasons why it might be totally reasonable for him to not throw out the milk. The most common solution that was suggested was maybe he doesn't drink milk. And it's interesting that that's where people's mind went, when the reality, as we came to discover, is that she doesn't drink milk. He is the only one who drinks the milk. But I thought it was super fascinating that so many people were ready to assume that he didn't drink milk. They were ready to give him so much benefit of the doubt instead of just believing what was right in front of them. You see, when you look at it through that lens, if he is the only one who drinks milk, then that means that he is using the milk. He is then noticing that the milk has gone off because he stops using it. He's getting a new fresh milk, but he is leaving the old milk in the fridge. And knowing that tidbit of information, does that not change how you now see the situation? That the fact that he left the milk in the fridge for, I think, almost 5 months before he actually threw it out tells you a lot about his character, his values, how he views this relationship, just in general, the type of person that he is. But it's so funny to me that people were just so willing to see the best in him. And while I can't criticize people for that, I do think that that is something that it lets particularly women down. And I have to say that it was actually a lot of women who were trying to say, like, oh, maybe he doesn't drink the milk. Yeah, like, I'm sorry to say, but you're too nice and you're too willing to believe the best in people. And that does you a disservice. Or maybe you can just say that I'm kind of jaded. Both of those things could be true. Other sort of excuses that people had projected onto this situation was that, oh, maybe he does other things. Oh, maybe this is her job. Maybe, he mows the lawn. I don't know, whatever. The typical sort of thing where it's like, oh, well, he's the man, so maybe he does man jobs. And because this is in the kitchen, like, that's her job. And again, it's one of those things that just shows you how people's minds are so quick to jump on the gender divide of labor, where it's like something is in the kitchen and maybe she should have done it. Like, maybe that's just her job to do. Maybe that's why he left it in the fridge, because she's the woman. So obviously she should be handling the kitchen the stuff. But he clearly handles the man stuff. How do you know? You don't know, but people are quick to project that. And these sort of assumptions, they affect how we approach relationships, how we see relationships, and how we kind of like manage our own relationships. And so while I'm not saying that a couple can't or shouldn't divide up the labor in gendered ways if that's what they want to do, I'm just saying it's important to question the assumption that that's how things are likely to be in a relationship. And the final category of comments were the "it's just milk, it's not a big deal, and she shouldn't end a relationship because of a bit of expired milk." But here's the thing that I have come to learn about these sort of relationship dynamics. It's never just one thing. Okay, it's never just the milk. She didn't go through the trouble of filming this video over months and then posting it all because he forgot to throw the milk out one time. I promise you, if this were the only problem that they were having in this relationship, at least from her perspective, she would not have made the video. She would have just thrown out the milk and it would not have been a big deal. The fact that she's made the video and the fact that it's a big deal to her tells me that there's more going on, that the milk is the proverbial straw that has broken the camel's back, and that it is, in a sense, a type of metaphor for the relationship itself. And the other thing that I would highlight is that it is really unlikely that you have a situation where somebody can be so careless and thoughtless and disrespectful. And I'd like to go back to my previous point that apparently he's the only one who drinks the milk, that he clearly knew that the milk had gone off because he had stopped using it and had gotten new milk, that he had then just left it there for her to deal with, despite having been asked not to do that and to, throw the milk out because it's gross when you just leave it in the fridge to rot, and that he could just ignore it. So that to me says that he does not care about her, about this relationship. And I know that some people think that that is a stretch, but from what I have observed, that is exactly what his behavior is telling me. And I have made this point in other videos. This is just a human nature thing, so it's not even really only a man thing. We see this pattern more with men in relationships, but women do this too. We do this in our lives. We all do this. When something is important to you, when you care about the outcome, where you are invested in it, you are not going to be careless, irresponsible. You're not going to make stupid mistakes. You're not going to do things incorrectly or improperly. When you care and when you are invested in getting a good outcome, your behavior will reflect that. You will put in maximum amount of effort and care to make sure that you get the best possible outcome. And that is just a universal rule of being a human being. Okay. And you can apply that to all areas of your life. If you look at people's behavior, whether it's at work, whether it's, socially with your friends, and whether it's in romantic relationships, when somebody is being careless, irresponsible, not doing things that they're supposed to do, not really doing what they're asked, they are telling you with their actions that they don't care, that they are not invested in this situation, whatever it is, that they don't care what the outcome is, that they don't really want to have to put in the effort to try to get a good outcome because it doesn't matter to them. So to put that in the context of a romantic relationship like we have here, to me, this man's behavior is saying, I don't really care so much about this relationship, not to the point where I'm willing to put in the time and effort to do something that maybe I don't want to do, but that will make my partner happy. Instead, it's more likely a situation, and this is where it gets a bit gendered, where the man really just, he likes the girl, he likes being in a relationship and certainly doesn't want to be single, but he doesn't really care so much about her specifically. She could really just be any pretty girl. He would be happy to just swap her out with any pretty girl that was easy enough to get along with. And that's why he's not willing to put in the work to get a good outcome, because from where he's sitting, it's a lot better and easier to just do nothing, because either he gets away with it and never has to throw out the milk because she'll do it, and the milk could be anything else and probably is a number of other things. So it's a lot easier to just not do it, play dumb, ignore it, whatever, and basically just do the bare minimum that you can get away with. And then you basically have somebody doing things things for you and making your life easier. Or worst case scenario, she leaves and he'll just swap her out with somebody else who's willing to throw the milk out. And I know people have a hard time believing that somebody would do this, and women can do it as well, okay? It's just that it's more common to see it in men because of the way that we're socialized. I think that women are socialized to A, prioritize romantic relationships, and then B, also strongly encouraged to be in a romantic relationship. And if we're not, we're shamed for being single, like, what's wrong with you? You're expired, et cetera, et cetera. And so women have this very strong kind of social incentive to make relationships work. And so they're, again, more heavily invested in the outcome, whereas men can get away with being a bachelor, and that's kind of cool. And it's also easier for them to just, like I said, swap one girl out for the other. Because, again, women are more desperate and incentivized through social pressure to be in those romantic relationships. And so the dynamic tend to favor seeing this play out in that way. I just wanted to highlight that because I'm not saying this to bash on men or to say that men bad, women good. I'm trying to just highlight that these dynamics play out this way for very real reasons that have nothing to do with someone wanting to be a bad person, but instead you have to recognize that, we don't exist in a bubble and that all these things impact how we approach relationships and how we get on in relationships. But that doesn't mean that you should accept that behavior. And I think recognizing that, and the more women who do, and the more women who are unwilling to play along with that narrative and to push back against it and to be like, you know what, being single is better. Throw out your own milk, take care of yourself. I think the more we will actually see relationships improve in kind of a weird, ironic way. But that's just my opinion. So yeah, I will end on this note to say that this isn't about milk. It's never really only about milk, or only about the laundry, or only about the dishes. It's really about feeling like their partner has a true lack of care and consideration for them, their feelings and their needs, and feeling like their partner isn't as invested in making the relationship work and isn't willing to put in the same level of effort. And I find that it is that mismatch in effort more than anything else, more than the milk and the laundry and who's put the dishes in the dishwasher or whose turn it is to cook. More than all of that, it is really the mismatch of effort, the one person putting in maximum effort to make their partner happy, to do what they want, to meet their needs, and then to feel like the other partner is like, I don't really care. That is the most hurtful thing. And that is probably one of the biggest reasons that I see relationships start to break down. That's where you see all the problems start, whether it's infidelity, whether it's, everything else. Like, the symptom is obvious, is often that lack of effort, the mismatch in who is putting in the effort to make it work and who isn't. But you guys let me know what you think in the comments below, because I always love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to watch this other video over here, and hopefully I will see you there. Bye for now.